Now, one person we did hear from today for the first time, Karen Reed herself, doubling down, of course, saying she did not do this. She wants to know who did.
Said it feels we're the only ones fighting for the truth of what happened to John O'Keefe. And me and my family and my attorneys and my team have marshaled every resource to get to the truth. It just feels like no one else wants it.
Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
And no, she didn't do it. No, she didn't do it. This is an innocent woman. She didn't do it.
I tried to save his life.
Yeah.
I tried to save his life at 6 in the morning. I was covered in the only one trying to save his life.
Why'd you admit to it?
She didn't admit to it. She didn't admit to anything close to that. Nothing close to that. And you should know that.
That was like 3 or 4 times she admitted to it.
No, she didn't.
That's not true.
She asked a question. She asked a question, which is very different. She didn't admit to anything.
Let's go.
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
All right. How is everybody? Going to talk to you a little bit today about Karen Reed and her relationship with John O'Keefe and what appeared to my eye to be a relationship of toxicity, a relationship of a psychopath and a mark, meaning Karen Reed being the psychopath, John O'Keefe being the mark, and a lot of gaslighting, manipulation, controlling. But before we really get into the testimony that shows their text messages and explores a little bit their relationship, and of course, Karen Reed says it's like a big nothing burger. I think it's Alan Jackson who said, oh, it's nothing. They were a couple. They had a moment, but then they got back together. That's all it was. I think it's a whole lot more than that, Alan Jackson. It was clear to everyone in that courtroom who heard those text messages, her texting him over and over and over and over and over again, text bombing him, calling him over and over and over again, and John O'Keefe constantly trying to make boundaries. Leave me alone. I can't talk. Stop calling me. Stop texting me. And Karen Reed insisting on controlling him, getting in touch with him, presenting herself like the martyr in the relationship. So this is her reaction. She's, of course, giving interviews, really appeals to her narcissism outside of court. I thought we'd start with this, and then I'm going to get into some of the characteristics of a psychopathic relationship, and we're going to talk about gaslighting, and then we'll go into the messages that were presented in court yesterday. So here's Karen Reed. She's in her element. Of course, we haven't seen any of the kind of grieving for John O'Keefe. She just seems to be high off her own own sense of self-importance and all the narcissistic supplies she's getting from her flying monkeys here.
Can we ask you just how you're feeling now the prosecution's about to wrap up? I mean, they have like 1 day left. How do you feel about their case against you?
How do I feel about their case against me? There is no case against me.
After 8 weeks.
After 8 weeks.
Yeah, right. So even the reporter is like, huh? This is the same innocence fraud line that they all throw out. There is no evidence. So the reporter's like, oh, so we've been hearing no evidence for the past 8 weeks, 2 months full of no evidence, no case. Boy, that's a big nothing of a case. Even if you disbelieve the evidence or want to dismiss it, you have to acknowledge that the Commonwealth has presented an enormous amount of witnesses, an enormous amount, tripling up. So we've heard from Nicholas Garano, Jessica Hyde, Ian Whiffen, all about really more Jessica Hyde and Ian Whiffen going in real detail, but also Nicholas Garano, all debunking the 227 search, that it was really done at 6:23, 6:24 in the morning.
It's smoke and mirrors, and it's going through my private life and trying to contrive a motive that was never there.
Have you thought about what it would be like?
I don't think the state is really asserting any kind of motive that Karen Reed hasn't asserted herself, which is that they were a couple that was having a hard time and she was angry. I don't think there's any kind of grand motive. I've often considered, had she planned this? Had she been fantasizing about this? There's been rumors going around. Is it true? You just don't know that she burned a previous boyfriend's car, which I think is interesting, that it's her weapon of choice seems to be the car. But she went into cover-up mode very quickly and planning mode very quickly, how she was going to get away with this. Deleting the Ring camera evidence, going in and making her own evidence by driving into John O'Keefe's car at 5:08, getting Jen and Carrie and getting them to witness her hysteria and her discovery. It really reminds me of those 911 calls that are meant to inform rather than to get help. That was what she was there for. She was there to inform everyone that she had done this to John O'Keefe. She wasn't there to really get help for him. That's my view. And to perform a kind of hysteria and record her own hysteria, her own acted out hysteria, her own acting on her cell phone, John O'Keefe's cell phone, when she ringed him up. And then she puts her cell phone right down, right at the base of Carrie Roberts' tire, and runs over and straddles John O'Keefe's, rips up his shirt and runs around, and she's yelling, Jen, Jen, Carrie, Carrie. She's not yelling, John, John, are you okay? Are you okay? She's yelling, Jen, Jen, Carrie, Carrie. I'm informing you this happened. I'm informing you. I am shocked. I'm informing you. This is my unveiling of my handiwork. So I thought that was funny. Oh, 8 weeks? 8 weeks of no evidence? Yeah, it's been 8 weeks of smoke and mirrors. You would think that would take maybe 8 minutes, not 8 weeks.
Like to be on the witness stand yourself?
Yeah, I have. I'd like to fill in some holes and correct some lies, but it's up to the attorneys, and they'll make the call probably at the 11th hour, and I'm there or not there.
You're lobbying though for your chance to testify?
I'm an outspoken person, and I've never not been able to speak up for myself and my defense, except when it matters the most. I've got to rely on them and their expertise, and I'll defer to the attorneys.
She'll defer to the attorneys. She likes to speak up for herself. She's just an assertive person. She's not a controlling, psychopathic gaslighter. She's just an assertive person, guys. She likes to stick up for herself. She's not going to be pushed around. What is up with that demeanor? If you think that the jury isn't, hold on one second, paying attention to that demeanor in court, which is so inappropriate, you are so wrong. Whether they're going to choose to rationalize it and ignore it, that's something else. Things like I've been saying all along, if she gets acquitted from this crime or of any of the crimes she's been accused of, it will be because of the innocence fraud campaign that she's put on. It will be nothing to do with what's gone on in the courtroom, unless I see something amazing from the defense. We do have the defense's case coming up. Covered the voir dire of the defense witnesses this morning. Alan Jackson got caught in some lies. It was pretty interesting. You can go back to my channel and watch that. So 6 obstacles to a relationship with a psychopath. Like, there's just going to be obstacles, guys. I love psychology today. This is very basic. It's not a sophisticated piece, but it is an informative one. Psychopaths are prone to interact through manipulation and use of others for their sole benefit. Extending love and care to a psychopath will not impact the expression of their pathology. The bond created between a psychopath and a non-psychopath is based on fluctuating abuse and dependence. We learn about others and ourselves through our intimate relationship experiences. What if an experience was traumatic and left behind psychological scars that require healing or professional intervention? This is the reality for many who have found themselves in an intimate relationship with a psychopath. Psychopathy is such a commonly used word online and in the media, making the symptoms for this general public ambiguous. Well, I think it's a fading word being replaced with narcissism. And I think that the reason that they're getting rid of psychopathy is because psychopaths cannot be rehabilitated. And it furthers the wrongful convictions movement narrative that everyone in prison who's doing life without parole is doing life without parole and not getting a second chance for their worst mistake. That's how they put it. So, and they've been rehabilitated and they just need that chance to get out. Psychopathy is a disorder related to specific faulty brain functions. A few such areas include, I don't know if I believe this brain stuff, but that's also controversial. Let's address some basic psychopathy in a deeply ingrained constellation of personality traits and behaviors. The symptoms reflect an emotional. Okay, the psychopathy is a complex condition. Okay, the vast symptoms of this condition include traits such as lack of minimal empathy, callousness, manipulation. And you're going to see so much of this. What have we seen through this whole trial from Karen Reed? Callousness, this manipulation of the public through her campaign that she spearheaded, manipulation of the press. Oh, I just have to correct all their lying. I would love to get up on the stand, but it looks like maybe my lawyers won't let me. Pathological lying. There you go again. It was all the people were meant to believe that, say, Karen Reed said some version of I hit him. It's my fault. Is he dead? Those kind of things. They're all lying, and only Karen Reed is telling the truth. What is just statistically the likelihood of that? Not very likely. Charm. She has to have some charm. A little charm. She was liked, and I think she mirrored John O'Keefe, meaning she watched John O'Keefe's behavior and mirrored it, because they're very empty. A tendency towards boredom, arrogance, blame shifting, right? It's the Commonwealth and their smoke and mirrors. It's not that she hit John O'Keefe with her car and caused his death. It's just that she's the victim of a campaign by the Commonwealth to protect the police and blame her for other people's crimes. Dominance, aggression, all this you'll see in these text messages. Dominance, aggression, impulsivity, okay? And for those of you not familiar with the word gaslighting, I thought this was important to just go over. I know this is, again, very bare bones, not as sophisticated, but gaslighting is an insidious form of manipulation and psychological control. Victims of gaslighting are deliberately and systematically systematically fed false information that leads them to question what they know to be true, often about themselves. They may end up doubting their memory, their perception, and even their sanity. Over time, a gaslighter's manipulations can grow more complex and potent, making it increasingly difficult for the victim to see the truth. The term gaslighting comes from a 1938 play, Gaslight, and its film adaptation. Gaslighting can occur in a personal or professional relationship, and victims are targeted at the core of their being, their sense of identity and self-worth. Manipulative people who engage in gaslighting do so to attain power over their victims, either because they're simply derive warped enjoyment from the act, or because they wish to emotionally, physically, or financially control their victim. And you can see this grasping of control from Karen Reed. She really just wants to gain control over John O'Keefe, and he's doing everything to dodge and ignore her. A relationship with a gaslighter may seem to start out quite well. They may praise the victim on a first date and immediately confide in them. Such disclosure before any intimacy has been establishes trust quickly. It's part of a tactic known as love bombing. The more quickly a victim becomes enamored, the more quickly the next phase of manipulation can begin. What are a gaslighter's tactics? A gaslighter will initially lie about simple things, but the volume of misinformation soon grows. And the gaslighter may accuse the victim of lying if he or she questions the narrative. They typically deploy occasionally positive reinforcement to confuse the victim, but at the same time, they may attempt to turn others against the victim, even their own friends and family, by telling them that the victim is lying or delusional. So, victim experiences increasingly self-doubt as the gaslighter insists that what he or she remembers, thinks, and feels is wrong. The manipulative individual will introduce lies in more sensitive arenas. And what's interesting about this is I feel like Karen Reed's campaign, her innocence fraud campaign, is gaslighting the entire world with help from the media. So I watch a whole day full of trial of really devastating evidence, and I'll watch the free Karen readers or the media minimize the really pertinent information and maximize like small moments. I think we heard about one witness swearing under his breath as hugely important now. Not that Ian Whiffen debunked again, which is the crux of the defense's case, the 227 search by supposedly Jennifer McCabe, when it was done at close to 6:30 in the morning, twice, at the request of Karen Reed, which is exactly what Jennifer McCabe testified to, aiming to disrupt and distort foundational aspects of the victim's being, wearing them down, establishing confusion, and forcing them to rely on the gaslighter's version of reality. And it's like very interesting what was happening in a micro, happening on a micro level in this relationship, or on a not on a micro level, on a level in this relationship. This kind of gaslighting is now happening on a massive level, where the entire world is being gaslighted by Karen Reed and her defense team and the media And this campaign is bizarre. How to recognize a gaslighter. They can be effective and successful. They often have a personality disorder. And what is the difference between gaslighting, manipulation? And manipulation is the key part of gaslighting. So they can use hoovering, which is when someone tries to leave a gaslighter, or also when they want to start a relationship with a gaslighter. They may employ the tactic of hoovering, which takes its name from the vacuum brand. They will tell the victim how much they love him or her and praise all their positive qualities. They also explain how things are going to change between them. But soon after the victim agrees to stay, things go back to the way they were. So I'm working. So she says in these text messages, I'm working so hard. It's so hard for me. Meaning to make things better and make things healthy, really painting herself as the martyr. How does gaslighting change a victim? So this is what John O'Keefe may have been going through. It would have been psychologically devastating. Gaslighting violates trust, upends a person's view that people are generally good, and can make them suspicious of everyone who is close to them. Falling victim to a gaslighter also erodes a person's trust in themselves and makes them forget what they once valued about themselves. After all, it's easy to blame themselves for having been too trusting, vulnerable, or dependent. The experience will make a victim never want to be part of a relationship again. So let us... Oh, also, I wanted to, before I get into those text messages, I wanted to show you some interesting pictures from Dr. Zap. Hey, Dean Walker, thanks so much for the super sticker. Nice to see you here. From Dr. Zap of Karen Reed hovering over her grandmother. And this is what Dr. Zap wrote me. I'm sending you a picture of Karen for the fun of it. Not that any of this is funny because of what she did to John. How terrible, and what a terrible person she is to maintain her innocence like this. She has, by making others out to be murderers. But here we can see in her picture, apparently planning something, eyes fixated on the baby, who is much younger than Karen is, and the center of attention. Given Karen's jealous nature and inclination to cause harm, I'm guessing they may have been cause for concern anytime Karen was around other kids, especially younger and more vulnerable ones. Of course, I'm guessing of what may have been going through Karen's mind. Knowing what we know, it's easy to imagine having terrorized other kids. And she also sent me, Dr. Zap sent me a picture of Karen Reed's grandfather was a cop. So Janet Reed is the youngest of 4 children born to Napoleon and Edith Jean in Fall River, Mass. But her grandfather was a policeman. So she takes to this. That's just a little bit of her family background. It's pretty interesting now that obviously she wanted to, she was obviously attracted to men for the power dynamic in law enforcement. If anybody remembers her conversation as weed whacker, right? She was weed whacking, and she told Brian Higgins to get away from her because her husband, meaning John O'Keefe, who she was dating and not married to, was a cop. So it increased her power. And she was happy to leverage it. So this is this is Nicholas Garano, who worked at the Massachusetts State Police for 9 years and now works in the Norfolk DA's office. This is his testimony. It's not long, but
Now, with respect,
So Karen Reed is in blue. John O'Keefe is in green.
to what's contained on this page one at the bottom, if you could read the date and the time and indicate who is speaking and what is said there, sir.
Yep. So the blue bubble is Karen Reed and 1/28/2022 at 3:30 p.m. Hello. John says hi at 3:35 p.m.
Sorry, Mayor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Those are the Facebook ones.
So just to set the scene, they both seem to have the day off. John O'Keefe seems to want to spend the day with his children, which are his sister's children, his niece and nephew, who he is the guardian of. And Karen Reed, they've had a fight that morning, and Karen Reed is getting in touch with John O'Keefe in the middle of the day to see what he's up to. And we know that John O'Keefe went out for pizza with his nephew. We know that Michael Camerino came over, and then they all went out to drinks and eventually were planning to meet up and did meet up with Karen for drinks. So did she manipulate her way into an invitation there?
I'm sorry. What's contained in Exhibit 48 is the entirety of the chat report from Mr. O'Keefe's phone, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I apologize. Showing you another document. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
What do you recognize that to be, sir?
These are the native chats, native messages from John O'Keefe and Karen Reed.
So these are just specifically broken down as far as the chats between Mr. O'Keefe's phone and Ms. Reed's phone, correct?
Correct.
And as far as your review of both of the extractions from both of those phones, the material contained within Mr. O'Keefe's phone is consistent with the material contained in the defendant's phone, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Come with the seat to introduce and admit as the next exhibit. Okay.
Okay.
627.
Yes. If that could be returned to the witness, Your Honor, if we could, with the court's permission, if we could publish that.
Yes.
Okay, Heisenberg, Roberta, when all this is said and done, all of the supporters will be screaming for refunds. It'll be interesting. You know, we saw this with the River trial, that we saw a lot of people saying that was a miscarriage of justice, but it was nothing like this year-long innocence fraud campaign that we've seen with Karen Reed. This is like nothing I've ever seen before in real time in my lifetime, this kind of innocence fraud campaign. Even OJ had more balanced coverage than this.
Go right ahead.
And now, Trooper Carino, do you recognize what's up on the screen as the next exhibit, sir? Ms. Gilman, I'm sorry, if you could scroll down just a little bit.
Yes.
And again, from this first page, if you could, the blue bubble is from Ms. Reed, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Being from Mr. O'Keefe, is that correct?
Yes.
And if you could, again, read from this first page as far as date, time, who is speaking, and what is said.
At 9:49 a.m., Karen says, "You've really hurt me this time." 10:02 a.m. I'm sorry. This is, sorry, it's kind of hard to read. I'm sorry. This has been an issue with me for 8 years. It physically hurts me to see everyone else in their life do things for them. And I'm forced to always be the bad guy. At 10:09 a.m., Karen says, I am not the same as everybody else. Most of the time I try to do what is healthy/smart for them. More importantly, I try to support you and what you need. You just lashed out at me and said terrible things. I don't know how you've gone to this point with me when I'm just trying my hardest. You made the point. I made your point and continue to beat me down. I have a lot going on too. Physically, I'm falling apart and trying to get answers.
So that's the elusive brain tumor that seems to come and go. We heard about this at the bail hearing. I just played that recently. I think it was the last episode. So it's interesting, she's using the same kind of manipulation she used on the public that she's using with John. I'm working so I'm ill and I can't be responsible for my own behaviors, but how much do you want to bet that he just could not take being her controlling him or trying to control him all the time, and lashed out? And he seemed, from his friends' descriptions on the stand, like someone who kept his issues to himself. Even with Michael Camerino, when he asks what you're up to, he's like, stupid crap. My words, not his. Meaning fighting with Karen is stupid. It's not going to go into it, but just kind of allude to it. And they had been fighting for years. He had enough. And she's like, but I'm trying so hard. He's telling her, like, I went out, telling her to get out of the house. And she refused to leave the home before this. So she constantly violates his boundaries, won't leave him alone, constantly in his face, and constantly making him out to be the bad guy and her the martyr. It's gaslighting at its finest.
And help.
If I could stop you there, sir. If I could direct your attention to... My apologies. Sir, if I could direct you to page 5.
Okay.
I'm sorry, bottom of page 4.
All right.
And starting with the blue bubble on the bottom of page 4, again, if you could indicate as to who is speaking, what is said, and the date and times.
Yeah. Karen says to John at 1:21 p.m. on the 28th, maybe you can call someone.
If you could continue on and through page 5, sir.
On the 28th at 1:46 p.m., John says, like who? And 1:47 p.m., what time are you coming here? And then there is, at 2:05, there's a message, but no content.
And the next message at 2:06, sir?
Yes, 2:06 from Karen. I don't know what time. Feel kind of out of it. Just trying to clear my head. 2:06 p.m., John writes back, okay. 2:06 p.m. again. Karen says, text me later when you guys settle in later. Text me when you guys settle in later. John says, sure, at 2:06 p.m. again. Karen says at 2:16, I feel pretty shitty about this. Feel pretty shitty about how this morning went down. I know you said sorry, but it really stung, especially when I've been trying pretty hard lately. I feel like a loser turning around, just coming back over after everything you said.
Right. And he's not asking her to come back. He's like, leave me alone. Get away. Go away. Get out of the house. And she refuses. And she's constantly demanding that he talk about it, engage with her, text me, call me, engage. He's like, I just can't take the fighting anymore. This is enough. Enough of this. done. I'm wary of you. She's like, but I'm trying so hard. Don't you see everything I'm doing for you?
If I could ask you to continue on to page 7, sir.
Okay. At 2:17 p.m., John says, not sure what else you want me to do. I said I'm sorry and I was out of line. If you prefer to stay home, I totally get it.
How much do you want to bet that he wasn't out of line? How much do you want to bet that this was the result of years of tampering down his true feelings, and he'd had enough of this abuse and finally just blew up? And she manipulated it back so she will force him to blow up, basically, and then have him apologize for it because she's trying so hard, gaslighting him.
Karen replies back at 2:17, things in my own life have been difficult too, you know. John writes back at 2:17, I know. At 2:25 p.m., tell me if you're...
He's raising two children. His sister's children. Has a job as a police officer, which is not easy. She works maybe part-time at her father's university, Bentley University, maybe. We haven't heard much about that, if she has even worked in the past years. And helps out somewhat with the kids. I don't think his life is any easier than hers, minus whatever health conditions she struggles with.
You're interested in someone else. Can't think of any other reason you've been like this. From Karen.
You could continue on to page 8, sir.
At 2:25, John responds back, nope. Things haven't been great between us for a while. Ever consider that? That was at 2:26. 2:29, he writes, kids are here, not in the mood to talk.
So we know he kept his phone in his back pocket. Every time he's getting these, whipping this out from his back pocket, pulling it out and seeing more text messages, more calls, more demanding to engage in this conversation. He's like, do you ever consider that I've maybe had enough? Do you ever consider that my anger is from having had enough and not me being a terrible person and you intentionally making you feel like a loser? And that's something that the free Karen readers often call the people that think she's guilty. You're such a loser. You're so stupid. It's interesting.
And how does Yvette respond to that at the bottom of page 8?
So you're not into it anymore. That's fine. But I don't want to keep trying. And you keep treating me like this. At 2:29 p.m.
If I could direct you to the next page 9.
Right. See, it's John O'Keefe who's treating Karen Reed like this. It's his anger. It's his problems. It's not her toxicity. It's not her psychopathy. It's not her desperate need to control every aspect of his life that's making problems for her. It's the treatment. It's his treatment of her. Tell me if any of these messages you don't see, and they count them up at the end, how many text messages and how many unanswered phone calls went, and phone calls, some answered, some mostly unanswered went. It's abusive.
Yep. Ms. Reed says, I'm trying to hug and kiss you this morning and you whacked me in the face with a pillow. At 2:29. At 2:30, she says, last night you're basically like, yeah, what about? When we talk about the future. So why don't you just admit you're not into it so much anymore?
Imagine at a time when you're fighting all the time for you not to be into the relationship so much, into it anymore. Imagine that happening. Imagine at a time when you're fighting constantly for you not to be into it anymore. Talk about gaslighting at its finest. This is a masterclass. Karen Reed is giving us all a masterclass in gaslighting here.
2:30. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I said 2:30. John says, not how it went down, but okay.
So there's the lying. There's the rewriting history. Know that, and also gaslighting. This is how it went down. Don't you remember that this is what happened this morning? You hit me in the face with a pillow. That's not exactly how, and we're awful to me. No, that's not exactly what happened. He's on to her too. He's on to her manipulation too. He knows her ways. That's also what I got from this.
Now does Ms. Reed respond to that?
Can you please admit your head is out of the game with us?
And if you could, sir, please continue on to the top of page 10.
Okay. At 2:32 p.m., sick of always arguing and fighting. It's been weekly for several months now. So yeah, I'm not as quick to jump back into being lovey-dovey as you apparently. From John. And then John again.
Right, and you can see her in the video footage of the bar that night. She's shoving her face into John O'Keefe's face and pushing herself into him. And when he first sees her, you can see he's tilted away from her. And she's demanding that he instantly switch back to absolutely fueling her with narcissistic supply.
At 2:32, oh my God, stop calling.
Okay, stop you there for just a moment, sir. With regard to January 28th, you were also able to extract a report specifically in regard to calls received by Mr. O'Keefe on that date?
Yes, I was.
I mean, on that date into the next date of January 29th?
Yes.
I approach Ron.
Yes.
Here we go.
Not for nothing, but it looks like David Yannetti. So I'm wondering if she's doing some kind of triangulation with her defense team. It seems like Alan Jackson has become the favorite now, and David Yannetti is now the out in the cold black sheep being ignored. And she thinks Alan Jackson's going to win this case for her, and David Yannetti's going to mess it up for her. That's just what I see, but let me know if you see it. Maybe it's my imaginings, and just Yannetti hasn't cross-examined witnesses lately, and that's just a fluke. But Alan Jackson did the entire hearing this morning, the entire voir dire, and Yannetti had nothing to do with it, just sat there.
Sabrina showing you the document.
Okay.
You recognize that, sir?
Yes, it's John O'Keefe's call log.
And that's the entirety of the call log from January 28th into 29th. Is that correct?
Yes, from 20th at 9:19 a.m. to the 29th at 6:03 a.m.
May I approach, John?
Yes.
I'm about to seek to introduce the witness on the next exhibit. No objection. May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
showing you another document. Just ask you to review that, look up when you're finished. Do you recognize that, sir?
Yes, this is Karen Reed's call log from January 29th at 12:33 a.m. to January 29th at 6:03 a.m.
And those are specifically calls between the defendant and Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Yes, that is correct.
The defendant.
January 29th at 6:03 a.m.
And those are specifically calls between the defendant and Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
I want to see if you introduce the minutes and next exhibit. No objection.
You all getting that? She's calling him over and over again.
Thank you.
Now, Trooper Guarino, from the text messages that you were just testifying from, Mr. O'Keefe indicates OMG stop calling at 2:32 p.m. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Now, from your review of those call logs, how many times did the defendant call Mr. O'Keefe on January 28th from approximately 9:19 a.m. to about 2:58 p.m.?
There's 18 calls from 9:19 to about 2:59 p.m.
9:19 to 2:59 p.m. There's about 19 calls. It's madness. He's like, OMG, stop calling me. Get away. Leave me alone. She keeps doing it. I wonder where this perpetual line crossing came from, right? Like, just like your team, perpetual line crossers, perpetual boundary crossers, just like her legal team.
Those calls are listed within those records as various as far as rejected or missed or answered or things of that nature. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
How many of them are rejected?
11.
How many of them are missed?
4.
And how many are answered?
3.
Now, following that text message at 2:32.
3 are answered. 4 are missed and 11. So, 15. I'm sorry. I think I heard 19, 15. Still, it's a lot.
2 p.m. from Mr. O'Keefe to the defendant, asking her to stop calling him. Does the defendant keep calling?
Yes, she does.
And at some point, does Mr. O'Keefe call Ms. Reed back?
Yes, at about 3 p.m. on the 28th. Double check.
Thanks. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino, I can take each of the call logs, but I want you to keep. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Now, sir, if I could turn your attention back to page 10 on the text messages with respect.
Okay, so Mr. Lally, when you put your head down and when you walk away, we can't hear you. And so there won't be a record of this. So you have to keep your voice up.
I will do, Your Honor. I apologize.
Well, you just said, you just put your head down and your voice went down. So keep your voice up. It's really important you do so.
I understand that it's important for the court reporter that Lally keep his voice up, but this is so rude in front of the jury to admonish him in this way. There are nicer ways of doing it.
Trooper Guarino, turning your attention back to page 10 of these text messages, would read from Ms. Reed's response to Mr. O'Keefe at 2:32.
Yes, so 2:32 p.m., she says, why would you start with me this morning? And then followed up by 2:33, you're setting me up to fail.
If I could turn your attention to page.
Okay, once again, it's all his fault. Everything. Karen Reed is perfect. John O'Keefe is just a monster, setting her up to fail. It's not that she's failing. It's he's doing it. So she can't take any responsibility in this relationship. It's all John O'Keefe's fault. He's setting her up to fail. He's mean. He's terrible. It's not that she calls a zillion times and won't leave him alone and they're constantly picking fights. Constantly need his attention, won't leave him alone. He's setting her up to fail. This is, if he just would do better, everything would go better if John O'Keefe were just better all in this relationship. Don't you guys get it? Don't you get it?
11 and ask you to continue from there.
Ms. Reed says you start a number of fights from your end. John, and that's at 233. At 233, John writes back, I've explained it a few times already, not doing it again.
And how does the defendant respond to that?
So you're not into this anymore. And then John says, not into fighting all the time, correct. That's at 2:34 p.m.
And if I could turn your attention to the top of 12.
Yes, 2:34, Ms. Reed says, if you tell me you're interested in someone else, you will never hear from me again. You can have all the space in the world.
Right. It's you. It's you're cheating. You're cheating. And note that at this time, note the text messages from to Brian Higgins kissing him. But it's him. He's the one who's interested in someone else. You haven't heard any testimony like that, but maybe we will from the defense. Who knows? Doubt it.
John writes back, but there's no content at 2:34. And then at 2:34, she says, then stop starting with me.
Right. It's like, stop it. She's like, but you're doing it. It's not that I'm calling you, texting you incessantly. It's a nightmare. I think a lot of people have this feeling. Poor John O'Keefe for being involved with this psychopath. Can't get away from her.
How does Mr. O'Keefe respond to that?
At 2:34, he writes back, I'm not answering, stop calling.
And if I could turn your attention to.
Has anyone ever seen Dear Zachary? This is the same pattern of behavior that we saw from the murderer in that case. That constant, incessant calling and calling and calling. Andrew Bagby was getting from his killer girlfriend and trying to break up with her when she killed him. Same thing. This is breakup violence, relationship violence, DV. That's what we're looking at here.
At the top of page 13.
Ms. Reed says, can you please answer after how you treated me earlier? John responds back at 2:35. Kaylee is right here. Ms. Reed says, you're starting a rager with me out of nowhere, and then you tell me you're sick of fighting with me at 2:35. She writes at 2:38, I'm going to grab a drink in a bit.
If I could direct you to the top of page 14, sir.
She says, can you answer, please, at 2:38? He writes back at 2:39, no, Karen, not sure why you need to announce that you're going drinking, but have fun.
Right. So he's like, I'm with my niece. I can't talk. Stop it. And she's like, well, I'm going to go out drinking alone. And he's like, and he clocks her on it. He's like, I'm not sure why you're announcing. So is this when she started drinking? Because I'm not buying all this drunk stuff. I get that she was over the legal limit, but the alcohol doesn't seem to touch the sides with Karen Reed. And I'll say it again, not one officer that morning said she seemed drunk. She was dry. You look in the videos, it doesn't look like a drunk driver. She doesn't appear to be drunk at the bar. She's still walking a straight line. She seems to be able to drink an amazing amount of alcohol and still function apparently pretty normally. So I'm not buying the was so drunk, didn't know what she was doing, loss of control. I think when you put the pedal down 74.5% and gun it backwards when you could stop at any minute, that's an intentional, you're intentionally meaning to hurt, if not kill someone at that point. And if she was so out of her right mind, even she denies she was out of her right mind. Why is she going home and immediately planning the cover-up, calling him, texting him, and you'll see some of those texts coming up. I'm at my own home. She knew he wasn't getting any of these messages, because if he were getting any of these messages, he would know she was at his house because he checked his Ring camera incessantly. She knew he was unable to receive these text messages. She was covering up her crime immediately.
Karen writes back at 2:40, seeing if you want to meet me later. Can you please call me right after that?
And again, if I could direct you to the top of page 15.
John writes back at 2:40, have to take him to the doctor. He has practice. Mr. Reed writes back, yeah, 5 minutes. John writes back at 2:43, my father just walked in. Aaron writes back, okay, can you please call me for 2 minutes at 2:44.
The top of page 16, sir.
2:44, John writes back, not right now. Karen writes back, I'm there when anyone else needs me at 2:44.
See, I drop everything and call you when you need me. Why can't you call me when you're with your dad? Why can't you demanding to pull and maybe possibly make things bad with the other people in his life because she demands so much of his time?
2:46, yes, John, you gave me utter grief this morning. I'd like you to call me for a minutes.
And the last one from that page, sir.
Yeah, 2:47. I've been trying to get over the hump with is arguing, and now you tell me you're not into things. And if you don't want to fight weekly, but fly off the handle at 8 a.m. with me, like you're setting me up to fail.
Boy, that's her favorite line, right? You're setting me up to fail. You're setting me up to fail. If I'm failing, it's because of you.
Sir, if I could draw your attention to page 42.
Okay.
And sir, if I could ask you to start reading from the top of page 42.
Yep. At 7:41 p.m., Karen writes, okay, let me know if you end up leaving. John writes back at 7:42, why? Now you're not coming? Karen writes back, I'm waiting for the plumber. Actually think he's in the driveway. 7:42.
So she has to be pretending like she's at her house here when she's at his house. Something she does later on. And his dad's a plumber, and he'll bring this up coming up. So it's like, I'm waiting for the plumber. I don't need you anymore since I'm hiring plumbers since I know it's over between us. Pushing him to be the bad guy.
John says 7:43, we're taking Mike's car, so I'm relying on you for a ride home if he leaves. Karen writes back at 7:43, he's not going home after. John writes back at 7:43, 8 on a Friday. He may have to get Michael. And you have a plumber coming over at 8. Knowing me and Papa could have handled it. Good luck. And that was a 7:44.
Right. And it sounds like he doesn't even believe her. You have a plumber coming over at 8 p.m. when you know I would have fixed it for you. My dad would have fixed it for you. Good luck with that.
Thank you, sir. If I could direct your attention to page 49.
Okay.
If I could ask you to start from the page 49, sir.
8:29 p.m. Yeah, but he lives right down the road. John writes back at 8:30. Karen, this storm is going to be intense. Can't drive. 8:30. She writes back, okay, well, if he can't, he can't. John writes back, I'll do it Monday. Karen responds at 8:31. Ha, I better not still have this problem on Monday. John writes back, plan on being there. Karen writes back.
Right. He keeps telling her to leave my house. This is constant. He's at the bar with his friends. Look at all this back and forth. I'm at the plumb, waiting for the plumber. No, I'm not waiting for the plumber. Well, you better fix it. Well, you plan on, you're always at my house. Even when I tell you to leave, you're still there.
Back at 8:32, I'd like to know, I could take a hot shower here if I need to. John writes back, figured you'd be in Canton until Monday.
Right. You're going to be at my house till Monday, and his planning is there's a blizzard.
If I could direct you to the top of next page, 51.
John, I'm getting off my phone. Let me know what you're doing. Karen writes back at 8:33. I think the four of us together is toxic to this relationship. Would like to limit it. And then says, you've said so yourself for probably a year now. And John writes back at 8:33. Blizzard tomorrow. Nobody is going anywhere.
Sir, if I
Boy, that's a sad line, right? Knowing what happened.
could direct you to the top of page 52.
Okay. Karen says, maybe I'll come back late tonight. Bad snow is in the early AM. That's at 8:35. And again, 8:35. I'll head up there in a few minutes. Let me know if you leave. John replies back, sure. And then the next one's not until 12:55 AM on the 29th. I'm going home.
And the I'm going home is from the defendant, 12:55 a.m. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And if I could direct your attention to the top of page 53.
Yes, 12:55 again. See you later. At 1:02, your kids are cucking alone.
This is all after she hit him, killed him, or fatally injured him. I'm back in Mansfield. The kids are home alone. This is all lies. I'm home now. I'm back in Mansfield. And she's not. The jury is going to wonder why she sent these, why she lied about it. Why would she lie in these texts?
29, 1:04 a.m. I'm back in Mansfield. The kids are home alone.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So that is the nightmare relationship that is being in a relationship with Karen Reed. And I thought this was a little interesting little clip from an interview with her from Matt Johnson on Channel 5 when she was asked if she loved John O'Keefe. Thanks, Cynthia. What one word, Mansfield, many missed that on Law 2, pathetic, and some on X. Mansfield is not Canton. She planned it even if a moment before and knows what she did, in my opinion. Yeah. She started covering her tracks immediately. And Yannetti was in that parking lot. Thanks. Yeah. So if you're wondering if you're talking about, thanks, Cynthia. Yannetti, I actually have a picture of it for you. I think it's here. From Aidan Kearney's page. It's a little hard, but to see secret meeting at a elementary school parking lot. I think that's what you meant, Cynthia. He admits being there, but says it was just where the client wanted to meet. But since that meeting, he seems to be persona non grata on Team Karen Reed. So here is Karen Reed's interview. Just very quickly, very short.
Privacy on the planet. Intimate.
So this is Alan Jackson normalizing the relationship. I think it's important to see. I know it's not the greatest picture.
Privacy on the planet. Intimate text between two people who are in love with each other, having a moment, and then getting back together.
And you loved him, I'm sure.
I didn't. We were dating. We were dating.
And tomorrow.
Yeah, no. She says she didn't love him. What's up with this motive, this no motive narrative then? We were dating. We were dating for 2 years. I had no love for the man I was dating for 2 years. We were just dating. It was just casual. She just has no sense of how others perceive her. hope that she testifies. I think she'll do as well as she did in all the interviews, pre-trial interviews, terribly, i.e. terribly. And as for the dog expert, I hope she testifies too. I think they're going to think that the defense team is extremely creepy and shoddy. So I'm hoping she does. I mean, it really looked like Alice Laviolette time from the Jodi Arias trial today. But the other two witnesses could be effective. I guess I'll leave you with just on the issue of, hold on one second, guys. If you didn't see my channel, I just posted this up. Just wanted to play this. This is from writer Dominic Dunn. And this is what he has to say about expert witnesses. Let me share my screen.
I only cover the trials of the rich, powerful, and famous because it is different for them than for other people, because they've got the bucks to spend on the $1 million lawyers, and they've got the bucks to bring in the expert witnesses. Jurors fall for those expert witnesses every time. I call them whores of the court because they can be bought by either side.
So I think that's worth sharing, that little piece of wisdom. Dominic Dunn, who covered so many trials and so many trials well, these kind of theatrics that happen in these high-profile trials that really can fool you, these expert witnesses. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious what happened. John O'Keefe's DNA on the inside pieces of Karen Reed's tail light, Karen Reed's own words. So I'm going to leave you. I think that's what I have to say for today. I'll be back. We're off tomorrow. And I think I'm going to take the day off tomorrow, but I'll be back Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern. Enjoy the holiday. And I'll leave you with my lyrics, AI's music, my new famous hit record. I hit my boyfriend with my car, my song about Karen Reed. Have a great night, everybody.
I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident. But with lying lawyers, I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment, I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system a clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Carry, Jen, like John, you were my mom. My innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit yet. I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers, I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment, I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system, a clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Carry, like John, you were my mark. My innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit, yeah.